Okay, we'll continue a little bit further in our sugya. You please open your notes to page 24, and we're going to start at question 18. So in the first video, we had studied the machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, and especially the way that Abaye explained it. And Abaye claims that the first shomer, according to Rav, is patur regardless of which shomer he gives it to, better or worse. And he also says, Abaye, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, the first shomer is chayav regardless of what shomer the first one gives it to, better or worse. Now, there's going to be another opinion in the Gemara that challenges Abaye's explanation. And that is Rav Chizda, right over here. Okay, Rav Chizda was a colleague of Abaye. They were both Amoraim. And Rav Chizda says the following. Hade Rav, this explanation about Rav's opinion, Lav beferish itmar. He never openly said that. Meaning, when Rav said the first shomer is patur, he never really actually said those words, that the first shomer is patur. Ella, instead, mechlala dehanu ginai. It was implied from a case of gardeners. Meaning, Rav never actually said the words, the first shomer is patur. Rav was talking about a specific case involving gardeners, which the Gemara soon is going to mention. And from this case, Abaye assumed that the first shomer is always going to be patur. And Rav Chizda is challenging that. So if you look in question 18 further in the sugya, Rav Chizda's statement is that the explanation about Rav's opinion was never really stated by Rav himself. Rav never said that the first shomer is patur. And what is his point? What is Rav Chizda's point? That Abaye is not correct in assuming that the first shomer is always patur regardless of what shomer he gives it to, as we'll soon demonstrate. Question 19. Now we're going to have the case. Interesting case that happened. Kol yom mehavu mafkedi marayu. These gardeners would give their tools every single day. Gava deahu sapta. They used to leave the tools by a certain lady, meaning the gardeners lived out of the city, and they had equipment that they used for doing people's gardens. And instead of taking the tools all the way out to their homes out of the city, they would have an arrangement with a certain lady that they would leave their tools by her every night, and in the morning they would take the tools and do their work. That's what they usually did. Yom achad, but one day, afkedinu legabe chad minayu. But one day, the gardeners decided that instead of giving the tools to this lady that they usually gave the tools to, they went ahead and they gave it to one of the gardeners. So one gardener had all the tools of all the other fellow gardeners. What happened? Shama kola behilula. This gardener heard that there was a celebration in his neighborhood. There was a wedding. Nafak, he went out. Azal, he went. Afkedino legabe de ahisafta. So he went to this lady and said, listen, I want to go to the wedding. Can I please give you the tools to watch? And she accepted. Ade azal ve'ata, while he went and came back to the lady to collect the tools, Agnov, Marayu, the tools were stolen. So what happened again is a case of Shomer Shemas LeShomer. The gardeners gave the tools to a gardener, and the one gardener went ahead and gave it to this lady. And when he went to get the tools from this lady, the tools were stolen. So Ata lekamei de Rav. So the case came for judgment before Rav because there's a dispute. Is this if the first shomer chayav? Is he not chayav? So the case came before Rav, upatre, and Rav said the first shomer is patur. So this is a specific case where we heard Rav said the first shomer is patur. Now, man de chaza, the one that saw the ruling, meaning there were students watching Rav judge the case, the one that saw this, Savar, he thought, Mishum shomer shemasa leshomer patur. So he assumed that the reason why Rav said the first gardener is patur is because it must be that Rav holds that the first shomer is patur when he gives it over to somebody else. And therefore, based on that, he went ahead and said, in every case, when a shomer gives it to a second shomer, it must be that it's Rav's opinion that the first shomer is patur. And that's exactly what Abaye assumed. That when Rav says patur, it means in any case. Velohi, but that's not correct, says Rav Chizda. That assumption is not correct. Shani Hasam, that case of the gardneres is different. And you guys can already see what the difference is. And I'll wait. I don't hear you. Okay, it's different. They call Yoma Nami Hainu Gufayu Gaveyahisav Tahavu Mafkedelhu. Because Kol Yoma, every day, they themselves, the gardeners, they gave the tools to whom? To the lady. And therefore, this one day where the gardener had the tools and he couldn't watch it anymore, he gave it to the lady. So in that case, Rav says the first shomer is patur, because the first shomer gave it to whom? Gave it to the person that all the other gardeners always trusted her. They showed every single day consistently that they were okay with this lady watching the tools. So therefore, it's okay for the shomer this one time that he had the tools to give it to that lady. But that does not mean, says Rav Chizda, that any shomer has the right to give it to any second shomer that the owner is not comfortable with. And therefore, Rav Chizda is disputing Abaye's claim that according to Rav, the first shomer is patur regardless of who he gives it to. If you now look in your notes, question number 20, Man de Chaza, the one that saw the case happening in the court. So Rashi says, Echad mina talmidim. This is one of the students, because as we discussed in class, when the court was discussing cases, there were always students watching the proceedings to learn how to judge cases. Sheshama mipiv, heard from his mouth, from Rav's mouth, the patre, that the first shomer is exempt, is excused. Savar, he held shomer shemasa le-shomer. He assumed that it must be Rav's reasoning that a shomer always has the right to give it to somebody else. So if you look in question number 20, Man de Chaza, the one that saw, that refers to one of the students that was present at the court. He assumed that the reason that Rav said patur is because a shomer has the right, always has the right, to give it to another shomer. Next question, but that is not the reason that Rav Nachman exempted the gardener, which was now the shomer. It was because he gave it to the person that the owner himself always showed that he trusted that lady. And therefore it's okay in this case for the first shomer to give it to the lady. 21. But, says Rav Chizda, one cannot assume that Rav holds that a shomer always has the right to give it to a second shomer, because that's not similar to the case in which Rav ruled. Rav only was talking about a case where the first shomer gives it to the person that the owner has indicated is trusted by the owner. Bottom of page 21. Therefore, in the case of the gardeners, the gardener who gave the tools to the lady is patur, but that does not necessarily mean that any shomer can give it to a random person that the owner does not know. That doesn't mean that he's patur. So therefore, the claim that Abaye made that Rav holds a shomer can always give it to another shomer is disputed by Rav Chizda, and we have no reason, we have no basis to assume that Rav holds that. We only know that in a case where the owner trusts the second shomer, the first shomer can give it to the second shomer. But we cannot generalize and apply that to any other case. And we'll stop here.